So here is a more detailed look at our agenda for today. I will start off by introducing motivation, what it is, and also some of its benefits. Then we'll discuss the relationship between motivation and goal setting. Then we'll talk about some strategies for motivation, including setting SMART goals, prioritizing goals, and also providing rewards to your employees. Then we'll discuss some relevant tools and resources, and then I'll answer any questions you may have about motivation. So before I discuss motivation in more detail, I want to get a sense of the current motivation levels within your organization and also amongst your employees, or amongst employees that you frequently interact with. So I provided two poll questions, which you can see on the slide, and the poll has also just popped up. The first question is, how would you describe the average level of motivation at your organization? So please take a couple of seconds to fill out that question. And then the second question is, what percentage of your employees are highly motivated? And again, please take a couple seconds to answer that question. Okay, so I see that most of you answered that you have about an average level of motivation at your organization, so moderate levels. So definitely there's room for improvement, and I can see, and we're going to talk about how to improve motivation at your organization. And I saw that about most of you answered that about 50 to 69% of employees are motivated at your organization. So again, I'm sure you'll reap a lot of benefits from this webinar. Okay. So let's start off with a good definition for motivation. Motivation can be defined as the reason or reasons that someone has for behaving in a certain way. You can think of motivation as this internal state that initiates employee behavior and also guides employee behavior. Motivation usually stems from the desire to accomplish a goal. People want to achieve something, and that internal motivation in them pushes them towards that goal. Therefore, motivations and goals are intricately linked. And you'll see throughout this webinar that we talk a lot about goal setting because that really does help with motivating employees. So think of a motivated employee as a driven employee because they're driven to achieve some goal. Some of the goals that your employees may have can be need-based. So employees may need something like money, free time, less stress, don't we all, or more or less social connection. And they're motivated to achieve that. So for example, if you have a highly social employee, their goal might be to engage in frequent social interaction. And therefore, they may be motivated to find a role or to be involved in projects where they have that opportunity to be more social. Some of your employees may have goals that are more growth-based. So employees may want self-improvement, they might want high performance, or to reach their full potential. And again, your employees would therefore be motivated to achieve these goals. By understanding employees' goals, you can understand what motivates that employee. Remember also that employees who are highly motivated have that drive to work hard, to be successful, and also to achieve difficult and challenging goals. So you want your employees to be as motivated as possible. People are often motivated by these broader, more general goals that can be called purpose. Therefore, an individual's motivation at work often comes from their sense of purpose. In other words, their broader goals. Figuring out someone's purpose for being at work can help you understand what motivates them in the workplace. So there are numerous examples of what somebody's purpose could be. We've provided a couple examples on this slide, but it can include things like improving society, helping others, taking care of family, giving expert advice, being challenged, and also many more. And you can understand an employee's purpose better if you ask them relevant questions. So for example, some questions you might want to ask your employees can be something like, what do you look forward to in the morning? Or why did you originally choose your career? And the answers you get from employees with regard to these questions can help you gain insight into that employee's purpose. So let's now give an example of how knowing someone's purpose can help you figure out how to motivate them. So let's say you figured out that your employee's purpose is being challenged. Then they'll feel motivated if they're being challenged in the workplace. As a leader, you have to think of what roles, tasks, or projects you would give this employee to keep them feeling motivated. So some good ideas to keep an employee motivated who likes being challenged would be to do something like give them creative work or to involve them in brainstorming session. However, this employee may not do so well and be less motivated if you give them something like repetitive tasks or routine activities. So it's very important to know what their purpose is and try to the best of your abilities, align the tasks and the projects you give to employees with regards to their purpose. Remember that motivations are about getting us towards a goal, and people feel motivated if what they're doing aligns with their goals. And people also tend to have multiple purposes and multiple goals. And it's your job as a leader to identify the main ones that drive your employees. I'm sure all of you know, but being motivated has been shown to be highly beneficial, both at the individual level, but also at the organizational level. So let's touch first on ways being motivated can benefit the individual. So first of all, there's a lot of evidence that shows that more motivated employees tend to be more satisfied with their lives, they tend to be more creative, and they also tend to be more productive in the workplace. Performance may improve because people work harder if they feel motivated. Also, better performance as a result can create opportunities for advancements. Also, it's helpful to have a clear idea of people's purpose at work because you can help them therefore understand how and where their specific role fits into the organization. There's also many ways that being motivated benefits the organization. First of all, establishing these broader organizational goals can be very useful. Employees may feel motivated and work to reach these broader goals. Also, if you align your employees' responsibilities with these broader organizational goals, it helps create this sense of camaraderie and importance amongst your employees. Also, motivated employees tend to spread the word, and your organizational reputation may improve as a result. Now, motivation is a very important quality for leadership. Unmotivated leaders, that if they're not committed to a goal or purpose, are usually less effective as leaders. As a leader, you're also a role model, and you can influence your team's level of motivation. So for example, charismatic leaders, they use their charm and their cleverness to inspire employees and make them feel more motivated to do the work. Leaders should also keep tabs on the motivation levels in their teams. So for example, if a task is tedious and not enjoyable, the leader can actually improve employee motivation if that same task is reframed as being important for the company. Now the employees feel that their work is important and they're more likely to feel motivated as a result. More motivated teams also tend to achieve better outcomes. So for example, their motivated teams tend to be more creative, more productive, and they tend to have more organizational commitment. It's very important to remember that you need goals and associated motivations to achieve excellence in the workplace. Motivating employees is not this one-time effort, and you need to make a habit of setting goals for and motivating your employees. So motivation is a skill, and like any skill, it's a talent that you want to further develop within your organization. So before we talk about how you can develop employees' motivations and goal setting, I'd like to know more about talent development in your organization. So here is a quick poll to help me understand the current status of your organization. So first of all, does your company have a formal talent development process? And please select one of the answers. And then the second question is, what kinds of development opportunities are offered in your organization? Give a couple seconds for the poll to wrap up. Okay, so I see that most of you, about 50% of you actually, do say you have a formal talent development process, but the remaining 50% say they're at most or there's some unofficial talent development process. Also, when we talk about kinds of development opportunities, most of you mentioned mentoring or peer support or formal training courses or programs. Okay, now goal setting is valued in organizations. That's a given. But also, most organizations need to further develop and further improve their goal setting process. So let's now turn our focus to strategies for motivation via goal setting. You need to work on how you set your goals to enhance the motivation levels of your employees. Think of goal setting as this tool. It's a tool to help create motivation, and it's also a tool to help sustain motivation. Goal setting involves creating an action plan for your employees. And when I say action plans, I mean concrete steps that people can take to get to their goals. In other words, you can think of it kind of as a to-do guide. Goal setting is a process, and there are three main steps involved in this process. So the first one is pretty obvious. You actually have to create goals. And this involves creating both short-term goals and long-term goals. The second step is you actually have to stay focused on important goals. So this involves prioritizing goals that are important. And thirdly, you have to maintain motivation when pursuing goals. And you do this by providing rewards. So you can provide a reward when people actually complete action steps in pursuit of that goal, or when people actually achieve either their short-term or long-term goal. And we'll go through each step of this process throughout this webinar. Learning how to set goals today leads to positive changes, both to your employees' motivation, but also to your own motivation if you choose to follow what we discuss in this webinar. And then just one more poll. Before we start discussing goal setting in detail, think about what goal setting is like in your company. Here are two poll questions about strategic planning in your organization to motivate employees. So the first question is, how good is your company at implementing strategic plans, such as initiatives to motivate employees? And then the second question is, what are the greatest challenges your company faces when implementing strategic plans? So some of the challenges your company faces, so there was quite an actual even distribution, but things like time and buy-in were definitely the top struggles that you guys mentioned. And then also, most of you answered that you have some strategic planning in your organization. So we will talk about some resources at the end of this webinar if you are interested in addressing some of the challenges that you mentioned. Okay, so now let's talk about setting short-term and long-term SMART goals. So there's a fundamental truth when we talk about motivation, and that's not all goals are created equal. Setting unspecified or unclear goals will not aid employee motivation. So for example, consider these two hypothetical goals that you could set for an employee. Goal 1 is I want you to improve your performance this week. And goal 2 is I want you to complete 2 more reports this week compared to last week. Goal 1, that is the goal of improving performance, is an unclear, unfocused goal. It's not clear what needs to be achieved, and the employee is less likely to feel motivated, therefore, to achieve this goal. Goal 2, however, that is completing 2 more reports this week, is a clear, concrete goal. Employees are more likely to feel motivated to achieve this goal. The best goals to set for your employees are those that are SMART. So SMART goals are actionable goals that you can work towards, helping to sustain your motivation levels and ensure achievement over time. And SMART goals is an acronym, and it represents goals that are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. And SMART goals are different from these vague, try your best types of goals. So first of all, when you're setting goals for employees, you want to set goals that are specific. Goals you set should be detailed, focused, and not too broad. So for example, you might want to avoid using terminology like more or less. So for example, we want more customers, and instead provide employees with specific amounts or specific percentages when you're setting goals. Secondly, the goals you set should be measurable. And what I mean by this is that you should make sure that employees can measure their progress towards the goal. Also, employees need to know when they've actually reached their goal. So provide employees with performance benchmarks to help them track their progress. Also, a tip I can give is to avoid using industry terms to describe employee progress. So for example, make sure to set clear, measurable goals instead of goals like disrupting the field, because when you set goals with using more industry terms, it's oftentimes unclear how the employee can make progress towards that goal. Thirdly, make sure your goals are attainable. Good goals, they challenge the person, but they are possible to achieve. Avoid goals that are hard to achieve. So for example, a goal like conquering the market, because that decreases motivation and it decreases employees' self-worth and engagement. The goals you provide employees should also be relevant. Make sure that the goals you set are relevant to. In other words, they align with team goals, but also the broader goals of your organization. So for example, if your organizational vision is benefiting the community, don't set goals that contradict this. And lastly, the goals you set should be time-bound. Set clear deadlines to employees for goal achievement and monitor employee progress when they're working towards their goal. Also, avoid giving employees these vague timeframes when setting goals. So avoid using terminology like, we'll get it done next week, or we'll get it done this year, or in the next quarter. Make sure to give more specific, measurable timeframes to your employees. Remember that SMART goals should be small, bite-sized, specific, and they should stretch your limits without being completely unachievable. Also, those short-term and long-term goals can be SMART goals. So short-term goals are goals about current day-to-day operations. So for example, creating a presentation for a client, while long-term goals are goals about future strategic plans for your organization. So for example, increasing company profits. Long-term goals can also be broken down into shorter milestones. And this way, it's easier for your employees to track their progress, and it can maintain employee motivation better. After this webinar, make sure you review the goals that you've currently set for your employees and make sure that they're SMART. Now, one thing to be careful of is ensuring the goals you set for your employees are realistic. SMART goals are also realistic goals. While it's natural to want your employees to give their best performance or their maximum effort, there's a very thin line between setting realistic goals for your employees versus setting perfectionistic goals for your employees. So when we say realistic goals, we're talking about goals that are challenging but possible to achieve, while perfectionistic goals are challenging but impossible to achieve because perfection is this unreachable standard. Perfectionistic goals can discourage and decrease motivation over time. And this is really where that attainable part of SMART goals comes in. To ensure that you are setting realistic goals for your employees, make sure, first of all, that you clearly communicate your expectations to your employees. This can include things like what the final deliverable should look like, any deadlines, quality expectations, and any necessary content they should include. Also, it's very important to continually get employee input. First of all, on whether they agree with the suggested goals, also if they have other ideas of how to improve the SMART goals, or whether the goal is attainable. You as a leader may have very different ideas from your employees of what's realistic or what's achievable. As a leader, you have extra responsibility when setting goals for employees. You might have access to more relevant information so that employees don't. You also might have a better idea of the organization's broader vision or mission. And also you have more relevant experience. So for example, based on previous experience, you may know what is attainable and what is not. Also, it helps if you clearly connect SMART goals back to that broader purpose we were discussing before. So this broader purpose can be at the organizational level. So the organization's vision or mission, but this could also be the individual employee's purpose. And in this case, you would want to ask your employee about their goals and purposes. Also, remember to communicate this connection clearly to your direct reports. So we just discussed what type of goals to set for employees and also for yourself, but just knowing how to set goals is not enough. Employees have many competing goals, and therefore they need to know which goals they should work on. In other words, they need to know how to prioritize goals. So let's now discuss identifying and working on priority goals. Now, employees have multiple short-term and long-term goals on their to-do list at any given time. And unfortunately, you can't get your employees to work on all of those goals at once. Therefore, you need to learn which goals they should focus on and which ones they shouldn't. So here are some strategies to help you with prioritizing goals when planning to-do lists for each day. So the first step is actually listing all the goals and associated tasks. So this includes listing both short-term goals and also long-term goals. Also, for each of these goals, determine the necessary action steps for these goals. The second step is actually where that prioritization of goals and tasks comes in. So the first step is to identify tasks that are important and urgent. So these are tasks that demand immediate attention and tasks that contribute to your values or goals. Most of the workday will be spent focusing on these urgent and important tasks. But it's very important that you also identify tasks that are that are important, but not urgent. Now, people often have a habit of neglecting their long-term goals in favor of focusing on more urgent and more immediate short-term goals. Therefore, it's very important that you set aside some proactive time, both for yourself, but also for your employees, where they have that ability to focus on these long-term strategic goals. So these are goals that are important, but not immediately urgent. And it's recommended that you should spend about 20% of your day focusing on long-term goals. And then thirdly, identify tasks that are unnecessary or demotivating. These can be tasks that are tedious, extremely time-consuming, or not important for your goals. Make sure to either remove these tasks or delegate these tasks. The third step is to segment your day into time chunks to address these different tasks. And there are two main ways of organizing your time. So the first is to assign each task to a very strict time block and stopping work when that time block ends. So for example, you may give employees 30 minutes to work on a task, and when that 30 minutes is up, they no longer work on that task. Another option is to create an order for work that is not dependent on time. So for example, you may tell your employee to finish task A before they start working on task B. Here, you've given the employee the list of task importance, but you're very flexible with time, and also you give employees a lot of time to manage each task. And then the fourth step is a reflection step. At the end of each of your day, make sure to spend some time reflecting on the goals and tasks that you've worked on. Mark which goals and tasks are completed, and also determine the progress that was made towards each goal. So what are some other strategies to help employees effectively prioritize their goals? The first is to minimize distraction when you're working on important goals. So an example of this is flagging non-urgent emails and responding at a later time. You may also want to remove distractions from your immediate environment. This can involve something like closing your office door or putting the phones out of sight. There are also a lot of external tools that you can access to help you better manage time. Examples of this include things like online tools. So for example, you can download an app that helps you track time. It can involve having a daily planner. You might use a Pomodoro timer. And for those of you who don't know what it is, it means working for 25 minutes, followed by a 5-minute break. And there are apps that can help you manage this Pomodoro time. Or it could be doing something like blocking access from social media websites. Remember that leaders should be aware of competing deadlines that their employees have, and they should help employees prioritize their tasks effectively. So make sure also that tasks are delegated effectively. You should help team members delegate to others with complementary skills, or you should make sure that the task you assign matches the employee's personal interests or goals, and also it provides people with a sense of autonomy. So we've talked about setting goals, and we've talked about prioritizing goals, and these are both very important. However, it is crucial to give rewards to employees if you want to maintain employee motivation. This is a simple psychological concept. You reward behaviors you want to initiate or maintain, and you punish behaviors you want to decrease or stop. Therefore, if you want your employees to engage in that behavior of creating, prioritizing, and accomplishing goals, then you need to give your employees rewards. Also, rewards themselves can be naturally motivating. So let's now discuss rewarding goal completion. It's a good idea to give rewards to your employees each time the employee makes progress towards SMART goals. This is when employees meet a goal milestone or they actually achieve a short-term or long-term goal. Frequent rewards can maintain motivation and also increase people's self-confidence. Also, when you're giving rewards to employees, make sure that the rewards you give don't undo the hard work that was just achieved. So if your employee was working towards the goal of giving a presentation, then the reward should not be no presentations for the next month. Now, there are many different types of rewards that can be given to employees. And these rewards are often grouped into two main categories. And these are extrinsic rewards and intrinsic rewards. So intrinsic rewards are rewards that come from others. These are often tangible rewards and often societally valued rewards. Examples of intrinsic rewards include things like money, certificates, or increased status. So an example of this could be an employee receiving a promotion. If someone is motivated to work on a project because they were promised a bonus on their paycheck, then you know that employee is being motivated by an extrinsic reward. Now, intrinsic rewards are rewards that come from within. So when we say come from within, these can be rewards that are physiologically pleasing. So for example, the reward of giving your team a yoga break, or it's rewards that result in positive personal feelings. So for example, the employee feeling a sense of pride, accomplishment, or enjoyment. If someone is motivated to work on their project because it connects to their broader purpose of helping others, then they're being motivated by an intrinsic reward. Rewards are best when they're intrinsic and frequent. Make sure to add intangible rewards like happiness, fun, or challenge to make tasks more enjoyable to your employees. Also, make sure to give rewards after each bite-sized goal to keep that momentum going. However, the occasional extrinsic reward is also very helpful to have. So for example, after a really busy 2 weeks of work, you might want to organize a company lunch as a reward. You can also use some extrinsic rewards in the short to medium term. So for an example of this is giving your employees overtime pay to motivate employees to work extra hard on sudden and urgent tasks. Now, obviously, you cannot force your employees to be intrinsically motivated when they're doing their work. But there are ways to help increase employee intrinsic motivation. So the first idea is to try to match tasks to the employee's goals or the employee's purpose. So you can do this by explaining to the employee how the task that you just assigned to them corresponds to their purpose or personal goals. Therefore, tasks and goals that you set for your employees may become inherently pleasing to them. Another thing is to add intrinsic rewards to tasks that you've assigned. Like the email example that we provided on the slide, find out what your employees intrinsically value. There are many examples of this, but examples can include things like music, having a certain lighting in your office, or having certain comforts in the workplace. So for example, bringing a blanket into the office. If that intrinsic reward doesn't interfere with the employee's work, then it allows employees to be intrinsically rewarded while they're doing tasks. In our example given on the slide, we talk about allowing employees to listen to music while they're responding to emails. Remember that as a leader, it's part of your job to keep employees motivated, and leaders should become familiar with what motivates team members. And they should reward people in a way that is motivating to them personally. So for example, some team members may prefer public praise. And for that employee, you might want to praise them publicly in a team meeting or via company announcements. But other team members may prefer private praise. And in that case, you might want to give them praise, that reward of praise, over email or during one-on-one meetings. Most importantly, and I can't emphasize this enough, if you're unsure of what motivates an employee, simply ask them. Developing your competency as a leader will also improve your ability to motivate employees. Therefore, becoming a competent leader can increase your understanding of what motivates individual employees and also what your employee's purpose is. You can also improve your interactions with employees. So for example, you can use communication skills to set and clarify goals for your employees. Also, if you've developed a positive rapport with your employees themselves in turn may be comfortable approaching you and sharing their motivations and their purpose with you. Developing your leadership competency can also lead to better management of employees. You can teach employees goal setting skills. So for example, you can teach employees how to set SMART goals. You can also connect employee goals to the organizational broader goals with strategic planning. And you can also learn new ways to manage employee motivation. An example of this could be using motivational interviewing skills. So this is outside the frame of this webinar, but basically it involves using skills to increase employees' motivation to change, using things like expressing empathy or not confronting your employees directly. So on this slide, we've created an activity sheet, and you can use this as a template when you're creating SMART goals for your employees. So the first thing you want to do is include details about the goal you just set. Who, what, when, where, why, and how. The second step is to determine what behaviors you will track to measure progress on this goal. The third step is to ask if this goal is even realistic. And also, is it achievable? The fourth step is to figure out how that goal is relevant. That is, how it contributes to a broader purpose. And then the fifth step is to decide deadlines for goal completion. So the key takeaways from this webinar are, first of all, that motivation will help you and your team achieve more at work. Also, goal setting is this wonderful tool that can help you and your team stay motivated. And finally, to increase and sustain motivation levels at work, make sure to set SMART goals that aim for excellence rather than perfection. Make sure to prioritize goals that are urgent or important, and also make sure to reward your employees often. Now, everyone faces challenges when it comes to talent development. So for example, when you're developing that talent of motivating employees. If you are looking for further support, then Sigma's flagship assessment, the Leadership Skill Profile Revised, which we call the LSPR, may be something that you're interested in. You can take this LSPR to get a holistic overview of your strengths, but also areas in need of improvement. The LSPR is very easy to administer, and it only takes 25 minutes to complete. And once you're finished, you get a sense of it summarizes your strength and also developmental areas. So for example, it assesses your ability to motivate other people amongst many other relevant leadership competencies. If you're interested in the LSPR, you can actually try the LSPR for free before implementing it in your organization. However, if you're looking for more structured support, then Sigma also offers resources like talent development services. And Sigma consultants can give you further support with the talent development process, including how to improve motivation. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us or check out our website if you're interested in this service. Sigma's talent development service provides a number of benefits. Our tried and true process is designed to save you time. It also is designed to improve accountability and objectivity throughout the process. And all of this is done with the support of Sigma's experts. And all of us here at Sigma have extensive previous experience working with similar clients. Thank you very much. Now I'm available for any questions you have regarding motivation or goal setting for your employees.
Thank you, Anita. So as we jump into the Q&A, I'll just say that I used the chat to post the links to the LSPR and the free trial and the talent development that Anita just mentioned. So feel free to take a look at those. And now we will jump into the questions that have been collected. As we go about this, feel free to add more to the Q&A box, and I'll keep an eye on new questions coming in there. The first question that we have for you, Anita, is can you give us some examples of rewards that we could offer employees?
So there are countless examples I could give, but usually the reason I actually get this question is because the company has there's a more limited budget with regards to rewarding employees. And so the company is interested in figuring out budget-friendly ways to reward employees. So there are, again, a number of examples I could give, but some of these are things like you can give your employees formal praise. So for example, via company announcements. Another example of reward is flexibility in the employee's work schedule. Another reward is professional development opportunities. You can offer your employees and really show that you're willing to invest in them. Also, small but personally meaningful gifts go a long way with employees. It shows that you care and that you're rewarding them as an individual and you've paid attention to who they are. So an example of this could be a gift card to their favorite cafe.
Great.
I hope that answered that question.
That gives me lots of ideas. Next question. This is one that we actually got from the registration forms. The question is, how do I implement a successful rewards and recognitions program at my organization?
Oh, that's a very good question. I would first of all determine if you want to introduce a more formal, that is a more standardized or informal recognition system within your organization. The second step is getting buy-in from leaders in the organization. A good way to achieve this is to remind them that keeping current employees happy and fulfilled is a lot cheaper than hiring or training employees if there's frequent turnover. Then you might want to research possible rewards and also consult with employees. As we mentioned in the webinar, you may want to ask them what rewards and what types of recognition that would motivate them. Also consult with other leaders to determine what exact behaviors deserve rewards. And then also offer rewards for employees for specific behaviors Or some companies, what they do is they let employees choose from a few available reward options. And this way they might be able to cover various motivations better, but make sure there are not too many choices, because if there's too many choices, it can result in choice paralysis.
That's great. Something we also tell our clients often whenever you're implementing any type of program or strategic initiative is that these things are living processes or documents. So you'll certainly be changing things along the way. Don't worry about trying something and having it not work and needing to change it. That's very, very normal. All right, here's another question for you, Anita. How can I understand what the underlying motivations for my employees are? How do I figure out what things will motivate them?
So the very simple answer to this question is really ask employees about what motivates them. But I will add a caveat to this. People's motivations and purposes do change over time. So really make sure that you keep asking them what their motivations are. So don't just ask them one time and leave it at that. Make sure to systematically ask employees to see what has changed. You actually might want to formalize this. So for example, you may want to include what are your motivations, what are your purposes as a standard question during interviews or during annual reviews.
Sounds good. That's a really good tip for sometimes these things fly under the radar. So it's good to have a quarterly or an annual thing set up. Great idea. Next question. How do I know if it's working? How can I measure if people are more motivated as a result of a rewards and recognitions program?
Okay, so the gist of it is that more motivated people tend to perform better. So to see if the rewards and the recognitions that you've implemented are working, make sure to monitor employees' progress to see if they're actually meeting the goal benchmarks that you've set for them. Now, if employees are not meeting these performance standards, first of all, you might need to set better goals. You might want to revisit the goals you previously set for employees and see if they actually are SMART goals. And you also may need to get employee feedback on this, either about the current rewards and recognitions you're using, or maybe even feedback from leaders within the company to see if other departments have have more success in implementing the rewards and recognition programs.
Thank you. Okay. Pulling up our box again here. Another question for you. So you talked a lot about goal setting in this webinar. Who should be involved in that? Is that something just for the leaders, or is it leaders and employees? Is it just employees? Is it both?
So when we talk about goal setting, obviously, as the leader, you are going to be involved in actually the guiding your employees towards being more motivated and working on whatever goal you implemented for them. However, it's very important to involve employees in that process, because people feel more motivated if they actually have a voice in the work that they're doing.
Yeah, this is something that we do a lot in some of the succession planning consulting that Sigma does as well, where you always sit down with your employee to see what are your career aspirations and motivations. You can't just have a leader determine it for you. So same thing applies to goal setting for motivational purposes. Thank you, Anita. Oh, here's one that will probably apply to most of us. Do you have any ideas for goals for really, really busy people? How can we prioritize our goals and make progress on them?
So this kind of stems back to what I talked about, where I talked about the urgency and the importance of the tasks that you have. So I would recommend that you spend about 80% of your day focusing on these things that really make you busy, right? Your short-term, immediate, urgent goals that you need to fulfill and the associated tasks. However, as I mentioned, it's really important that no matter how busy you are, you have to set aside some time in your day to focus on those long-term strategic goals, because those are the easiest goals to kind of set aside. We'll work on that next week, next month, etc. And then you're not really focusing on strategic planning. You're only focusing on fulfilling that short-term immediate goals.
Mm-hmm. I certainly find myself doing that. Thank you. That's really good advice. Another question about advice, slightly different context. How do you motivate a team rather than an individual?
That's a really good question. The fundamentals are the same. You still want to set SMART goals. You still want to prioritize goals that are urgent and important, and you still want to provide rewards. So there are quite a lot of similarities in how to motivate individuals versus a team. However, when you are talking about team objectives, first of all, it's really important to get buy-in from everybody on the team. If you get buy-in to those team's objectives, then the people are going to be a lot more motivated to actually be working towards those team goals. And also as a leader, it's very important that you make sure that individual goals, so for example, goals related to one's ego, for example, don't conflict with team goals. So there is that extra dynamic of individual versus team goals when you're talking about motivating teams. However, the crux of it is still the same, both for when you're motivating individuals and when you're motivating teams.
Thank you. And I'm just going to drop another link in the chat for you guys because that reminded me that we have a team building webinar coming up in a couple of months. Where's my chat? Here we go. Here's the link to that. This one will talk about how you can use leadership assessments for team building. I believe it is it's in April. So coming up quite soon. And team building is certainly a part of motivating teams as well, because when you've got a strong team and you enjoy working together, then you'll be much more motivated to be doing that work. So hopefully we'll see you all again very soon there. Okay, I see one more question here. What if I ask people what motivates them and everyone wants something completely different? Should I do rewards on an individual basis? If not, how do I pick or combine rewards to create something consistent for people?
Okay, that's a very good question. Now, obviously, as a leader, we would love to just give employees whatever reward that they desire, but obviously that's not feasible for a company. It is very important that you don't focus purely on extrinsic rewards. Your goal as a leader is to really intrinsically motivate your employees. And those tend to be things like connecting it to their purpose or letting them do something that intrinsically motivates them as they're doing their work. Also, if you're finding that employees are really not reacting at all to whatever motivations you set because they're just too varied in what their purpose and motivations are, this might be an opportunity to further develop yourself as a leader. Being a charismatic leader and being a participative leader are both qualities that really motivate individuals and get buy-in to work towards that broad organizational goals or towards team objectives.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. All right, well, if we have no other questions, I think we'll move on and wrap up a little early, give you guys some extra minutes to your lunch hour. Before you go, I just have a couple of announcements for you. Anita, if you could flip to our next slide. Thank you very much. So some of you have signed up because you'd like to get professional development credits for either SHRM or ATD. You probably know who you are, but I also need to know who you are, particularly for SHRM, because I'll have to create a certificate to send to you. So if you would like a SHRM professional development credit for attending this webinar, please fill out this poll and just let me know. I'll have your name from the Zoom records then, and I'll make sure to send you a certificate. I'll leave that up in the corner there for you guys. We also would love to invite you to our upcoming webinars. I'll send the link to that whole calendar for you in the chat. We have quite a range of topics, so it's not just talent development. Anita, is that the next slide? Oops. Perfect, thank you. There you go. So you'll see the website there, but I also have the link for you in the chat. So there's webinars on succession planning, talent development. We've got team building, as we mentioned, also quite a bit on leader character coming up this year. And you'll see a range of faces from our team, lots of experts for you to get some input from. So we would love to see you again. You can get all your questions answered in person there. And if you have any other questions, you're welcome to email Anita, reach out to Sigma via the website, and we would be more than happy to have a conversation with your teams. Our consultants are always happy to chat. So you're welcome to reach out to us one-on-one, and we can continue the conversation later. Okay, 2 more seconds. I'm going to close this SHRM PDC poll for us here. So last chance if you'd like to get that. All right. And then I believe that is all we have for you today. Correct, Anita? No, there's slides coming up here. Just your contact information.
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining us, and we hope you have a lovely rest of your Wednesday.